So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome to the latest in our series of FIPP Insider webinars. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, but I'm delighted to be back with a fantastically important session. Across the world, markets and consumers are suffering from the twin burdens of inflation and recession, and a big part of this, of course, is driven by the rise in the price of raw materials and of energy, and nowhere has been more apparent for us in our industry than in paper. Most of us still have very large print portfolios. Print is still an important part of our businesses. And for those of us that do, paper is the absolute lifeblood of the industry. So the recent large increases in paper prices that we've seen in the post-COVID period have had a severe impact for many. And with the crisis in Ukraine continuing, there doesn't appear to be any end in sight. And at the same time, there is a continued push for sustainability, particularly by consumers. Consumers are becoming increasingly strident in their demands for producers to demonstrate that they're reducing the environmental impact of their products. So it's against this backdrop that I'm delighted to welcome a representative from one of FIPP's most important and long-standing strategic partners, UPM, to discuss this and many other issues. A reminder also that in addition to today's session, you'll be able to hear from our friends at UPM at the forthcoming FIPP World Congress, which takes place from June 6th to the 8th in Portugal. We'll be interviewing one of our UPM's representatives there on stage, and we hope to see you there. You can learn more about the event at fippcongress.com. Now, I'm going to introduce our guest in a second, but before I do that, just a few quick housekeeping items. You will see at the bottom of your screen that there are a couple of links for you to follow. There is a chat box and there is a Q&A box. In the chat box, you will find useful information being posted by the FIPP team. That's links to some of the things that we're talking about, some of the reports that we're talking about, and of course, a link to look at the FIPP Congress and the FIPP website. In the Q&A box, you can put your questions. So as we go through the session, at the appropriate moment, I will stop and ask some of the questions from the audience to our guest. And this is your chance to participate in the session directly. A reminder that today's session is being recorded. So we will record and edit the session and then post it onto our YouTube channel in a few days' time. So keep an eye out for our YouTube channel, which is FIPP World, where you can get highlights of the session later on. So it's now time for me to introduce our guest for today's session. He is a FIPP board member, and crucially, he is the Senior Vice President for Global Sales for UPM Communication Papers. He's a very familiar face to many of you who've attended our events. Please welcome Ruud van den Berg. Hello, Ruud.
Hello, James, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
For some reason, I can't hear you. I don't know why I can't. Oh, now I can hear. Can we hear you?
Now you can hear me?
I can hear you, perfect.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Ruud. Nice to see you.
Okay, good to see you, James, and thank you very much for this invitation and giving the possibility to get a little bit more, or try to give a little bit more insight in what's going on in what you already mentioned in your introduction. So, delighted to be here.
Fantastic, and thank you. And we've got a pretty frank and open discussion lined up today. So, thank you for taking the time to come and do this. I think there's not many people that would put themselves up to do that. What we want to do today is to try and put the current state of the paper market into some kind of context. And then we want to get our crystal ball out and have a look at what the future might hold. So I think let's start with the recent past. We've tried to forget about COVID, but let's not forget about it in this instant. We have to start with it. What were UPM's experiences during COVID? How were you able to adapt the business, obviously a very physical business in the way you make paper, to the realities of lockdown? What was the impact that this had on UPM?
Yeah, well, obviously, and I suppose that's for everybody the case, and that has been for everybody the case in this world. COVID had a very big impact on our company, on our business as well. First of all, I would say that the first impact it had was that our order book more or less was cancelled to, well, it was not to zero, but it was at least reduced with 50%. But looking then at how the lockdown had its impact on the several elements, the several functions in our company, I would say that looking at communication paper, of course, there are differences between operations, supply chain, and sales. And if I may start with the sales side, my own expertise, of course, it had to open a new world where our sales persons were not longer able to have physical contacts with the customers, and that obviously was quite a change. For our supply chain, for our customer service people, it meant that they had to start working from home office, and we still had to take care that the customer contacts were kept on a high level, and also the customer promises were being realized. And last but not least, and most probably even the most important impact for our operations, because you will appreciate with everything I just said about supply chain and sales, that a paper mill you cannot operate from home office. So we had to take care that there was a very strict control and ruling with regards to the COVID. And we were extremely happy that actually we didn't have to stop any of our mills during any of the lockdowns, because we have been able to limit, to restrict, to have a very heavy control with all the people coming in, to have a very strict control that who are working together in case we got a COVID case being reported. And on top of that, I would say that specifically then here in Germany, in our German mills, that already at a very early stage, UPM has been able to contribute and facilitate to the vaccination, where we got some vaccinations quite early, and at an early stage already could start vaccinating our people working in the mill. So all in all, yes, of course, a big impact. But if I look at the business impact it had with regards to customer contacts, with regards to physical deliveries, etc., we were extremely proud how we have been handling those lockdown situations.
Yeah, because I mean, the obviously the magazine and newspaper industry didn't stop either during that time, so they were relying on those deliveries, and it's fantastic that you managed to keep that going.
Yeah, for sure. And then, well, it speaks for itself. I mean, we had the issues getting trucks. We had the issues of getting drivers for the trucks, etc. And still we managed. I think that in the majority of the cases, our promises, because like you said, I mean, even during COVID, at least for us, that was a highlight. People started to read more magazine, more books, etc. again. So we had to take care that at least our paper products were delivered for that in time.
Yeah. Have you noticed any kind of lasting impact on the way that you work and the way you do business? I mean, is it something that's changed forever, the way that UPM operates?
Absolutely. I would say that for the physical operations in the mills, well, it speaks for itself that, of course, safety and well-being continues to be very high on the priority list for all our people, and of course, extremely important for our people working in the mill environment. But all in all, it has a big impact because, of course, we now also have more people working from home offices. We have a more liberal policy, I would say, working from home offices, although, of course, we also try to entertain the people and successfully entertaining the people to come to the offices, where you also have your social networking, etc. But like in a case like this, we also started to increasingly use the Zoom meetings, use the team meetings. In a lot of cases, they are working extremely well, with also as a consequence that people doesn't have to travel that much anymore, that they are using their time more effectively than ever before. So for sure, it still has a big impact today, and also for us, the world has changed after the lockdown.
And contributing to your sustainability goals as well, which we're going to talk about a bit later on, which is another important thing we've seen for many businesses. I mean, there was obviously a slowdown at the beginning of COVID and the beginning of the crisis in magazine and newspaper printing, but that was followed by, and you've alluded to it, several periods of growth as we kind of emerged from the crisis. Was that challenging in terms of turning production down, turning it up? How quickly were you able to respond to those very wild swings in demand throughout that period?
Yeah, that's a very good point and an extremely important point, James. I would say in that respect that we have been taking and will continue taking care of our operations, that they stay as effective as possible, that we take care of the maintenance of our mills as good as possible. And that actually resulted in the fact that the slowing down and the starting up of our paper machines actually was quite successful. And I can say that we hardly have had any problems, any technical problems when machines had to be started up after a longer standstill. Of course, we all the time took care that, so to say, the mills were kept warm, because it's essential that you keep a paper mill warm. But we did not have any major technical issues Thanks to which our ramp up when the market then started to turn around again after the lockdown, more or less at within hours or within days, they were running up to full speed again.
And was that true also of your raw materials? I mean, were you able to continue with forestry operations and all that kind of aspect?
Yeah, yes. In that respect, I would say that our sourcing people that they have been very well prepared, and in that respect also taking care that the raw material flow was coming all the time in the mill, so that all the times UPM was prepared to restart the production. Of course, one of our major strengths is that we produce on multiple mills, comparable qualities. So if we would have a raw material issue at one of the operations or a technical issue at one of the operations, we could always and can always move a customer order to another production site in order to secure that we could continue delivering.
Absolutely. I mean, inflation and these big changes in demand has had all sorts of effects and things that we've not seen for 30 or 40 years, one of which is labour relations and the impact on labour relations, in few cases leading to strikes. We're here in the UK just about to have all of our doctors and nurses go on strike, which is good fun, so don't get sick for the next few weeks. I mean, UPM has not been immune from this trend. You had obviously a very difficulties with labour relations in the last couple of years. Tell us what happened in your case around this issue.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm not going to the UK, so obviously I'm not going to get any medical issues. But talking about strike, I have to fly out of Munich tonight, but with the knowledge that some of the German airports are on strike and will also continue strike tomorrow. On top of that, the German railway. So most probably I will have my issues with the strike myself as well. But
that is not just us.
Right. You are. No, but with regards to your question, I actually hope that this issue would not be brought up anymore. But unfortunately, we have to talk about that issue. That was a very difficult period for us as a company, but specifically also for communication paper, because still a major part of our production is taking place in Finland, and as everybody very well knows. The strike more or less lasted 5 months. Well, answering the question directly, the intention and the target of UPM was negotiating business specific agreements based upon the fact that, as most probably everybody knows, UPM has differentiated the company quite a lot in the last 10 to 15 to 20 years, where we are having business areas that are on the start of the life cycle, like our biomedicals, biochemicals, etc., in the growing cycle, like our specialty paper area. And then, of course, also, if you look at the life cycle at the declining stage, like communication paper. So in order to continue being successful, we were aiming and have successfully concluded that there are business-specific agreements with the labor unions now in place. So, it lasted a long time and it lasted a lot of headaches. But I think finally, for as well the workers as for UPM, the right agreements have been made.
So you're confident the issues have been resolved now, and as far as you know, won't recur?
With the knowledge that this recording is that this discussion is being recorded, and with the knowledge that you said there are quite some UPM colleagues, I'm not going to give any guarantees, James, definitely not. But I would say that looking at the cooperation and looking at what has been agreed upon, we should be pretty okay for the next coming years.
Yeah. 21st century has been a kind of century of crisis. No sooner did we emerge from COVID than the invasion of Ukraine began. I mean, what's been the most notable impact on UPM of this new crisis? Is it the dramatic increase in energy prices?
Well, the energy prices or the energy crisis was, of course, getting stronger when the war in Ukraine started. But we should not forget that already before the war in Ukraine started, there was a shortage and there was an increase of prices in energy. But definitely, the war has made it worse, and we all know what has been the result of the energy crisis, where the prices were, well, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 times higher than they were before the crisis. And with the knowledge that paper making is a energy intensive industry, it of course had a major impact on our cost situation, and hence, well, let me then add to it, unfortunately also for our customers, that meant that we had to implement the energy surcharges in order to be able to survive as paper producers. It was obviously not only UPM being confronted with those energy prices, like also our customers are being confronted with the energy prices. But I would also say that it has not only been the energy prices that have been impacting our cost situation, but there are definitely some more elements that have contributed to the need of having a different look at how do we have to position ourselves price wise.
Absolutely. I mean, a kind of mirror of that is sustainability, right? I mean, in all the time that I've been with FIPP,
yeah,
UPM has been very strong in emphasizing its sustainability credentials. Did that kind of energy crisis give a renewed push to that, in the sense that you were then looking for new ways to reduce energy consumption and further reduce your footprint?
I would say that starting with the general case, sustainability, I would say that, well, to start with, safety is priority number one. We have to take care of our employees. But definitely then sustainability is very, very high ranked in UPM strategy. That was already before the crisis, and it's definitely became stronger even during the crisis and now after the crisis. But I would like to start with saying that sustainability is extremely high on UPM's priority list. We are working with a lot of people, and we are doing quite a lot of investments in order to increase and to have a better sustainability situation, as it is also being very well recognized by a lot of external associations. We are committed to the UN's ambition of the 1.5 degrees. We are having the ambition to decrease our CO2 emissions by 2030 by 65%. And with regards to how we are even continuing also with our paper mills contributing to our sustainability targets, I don't know whether you or any of the listeners or viewers have seen that earlier this week, UPM announced that we are investing in 8 of our paper mills in Finland and in Germany in electric boilers, which is replacing the use of fossil oils. So that again will be a major contribution to our sustainability targets. Of course, on top of that, it will make us in our mills less dependent on the energy to be bought by the grid. But sustainability definitely is very important as well. So we are in that respect investing, and I also think that is a very important message to the people listening in. We are also investing in our paper mills to increase the sustainability, but also investing so that we can continue keeping them cost effective.
So your let's say your commitment to sustainability was never shaken by any of the crises that you've been through in recent years?
No, it stayed on a high level. It was on a high level, and that will continue to be one of the highest priorities of UPM. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I think everybody's really, really glad to hear that. I mean, the company's obviously seen their, as we alluded to in the introduction, they've seen their paper prices increase dramatically in recent months. That's driven by a combination of all the events that we've spoken about. But are there other factors that are driving this increase in price?
Yeah, I think we all have to do with the inflation. So it's not only energy. We are also talking about considerably increased logistic costs. We have seen that during the lockdowns, for instance, container shipments have become extremely expensive, and for good order's sake, UPM paper, UPM communication paper has a very strong global presence, with quite a lot of our production going to North America, with quite a lot of our production going to Asia, to South America, etc., etc. So that was very heavily impacted. Okay, those container prices now started to reduce again, but we also have to talk about the fixed cost. I mean, like we all very well know, everybody is talking right now, and hence you were talking about the strikes going on. Everybody wants to have more money. And in a company, the total company, which is still having 18,000 employees, you can imagine what kind of an impact that has. So it's a little bit too short-sighted to only blame the energy prices for what had to happen and what has been happening in the paper prices. And I think that is also very important to raise that issue. Because obviously a lot of people, a lot of customers are now expecting, okay, we see the energy prices coming down, so then you could reduce your paper prices as well. First of all, I would like to comment to that. Well, there has been pressure and there is continuous pressure on the paper prices, and we have been seeing the paper prices already coming down. But still today, the energy prices are 5 times higher than they were before actually the war in the Ukraine started. So we still have higher energy prices. And then comes, as said, those logistic costs, those fixed costs, etc., etc. So in that respect, the margin has become very thin right now again.
So you're sort of seeing a terrible combination of high staff costs or higher staff costs, higher raw material costs and higher energy costs. And really, until those, it's not enough for one of those things to go down. All 3 of them has to go down before you can see an increase in paper, a decrease in paper price.
Yeah, that's well, and also with respect to the question of the capability of decreasing the prices, we also have to take as a starting point the second half of 2021. And I know that UPM and a lot of our competitors in the markets have been able to report a very good year 2022, but we should not forget that the starting point, second half of 2021, the entire paper industry was losing quite a lot of money. So the starting point was at a very low level. So having to make up to that, coming back to the cost level, and then coming back again to a sound margin level, that was quite a long way, and that is obviously what we are trying to secure today, so that we are not coming back in that situation like we had in the second half of 2021, where we were majorly losing money at that time.
Sure. I mean, for people who are not familiar with what happened during COVID with paper prices, there was a fairly rapid decrease, wasn't there, in the latter half of 2020 and for most of 2021. And it's only, at the end of 21 and 22 that prices really started to go up, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would say that in the second half of 2021, companies had to start implementing energy surcharges, and then that was followed in the year 2022. Yeah, correct.
So, I mean, we've talked about how prices might go down. Do you see any prospect of that actually happening in the near future? What would be the triggering for that, let's say? Would it be the end of the Ukraine invasion?
Well, when will prices go down or when will prices go up? I think that what is important for us as an industry, that over the cycle, we have a sustainable margin that allows us to maintain our mills, a margin that allows us to still invest in our mills. So it's all the input costs that will decide it. And I think what is very important in that respect, that if everybody looks closely to the margin figures UPM Communication Papers is making within the company, we are not making a margin of which one could say that is a margin that is exaggerated for a capital-intensive industry like we are. So in that respect, I think it's important to state, or to have that stated, James, that also in 2022, when the market was tight because of the strikes we encountered, tight because of all the closures that have been happening in the years before, that we also at least try to take our responsibility not to accelerate the decline of paper, because at that time it would have even been easier to even increase the prices much more than we have been doing. But in communication paper, we also wanted to take the responsibility as good as possible to take care and to understand also our customer situation. And as said, not further accelerating the decline of graphic paper, because we are also very well aware of the fact that there is hardly any elasticity in price and demand with regards to paper. Once a magazine is closed, once a retailer has closed his mailing, then it's very unlikely that it comes back again unless, well, certain things are happening. So as said, there we try to take our responsibility. So, and I also think in that respect for our customers, it's very important that they also want to see continuous supply. And well, I'm not telling you any secrets. I mean, this is a common business rule. Well, if you are producing paper, but you're not making money with producing paper, then it doesn't make any sense to continue it. And then you again start endangering the continuity of the supplies to your customers.
I find that interesting that you've actually had discussions internally about the fact that you don't want to contribute to the decline of the let's say the customers industry, which I mean that's quite a revelatory thing. Yeah. Do you feel a sense of responsibility, let's say, to your customers?
Yes, absolutely true. And I can openly share with you, James, that we had internal discussions where some people said, well, we can increase further, we can make more money. But then there was a common understanding. We are making sound margins. This is good. Let's not exaggerate it, and let's not accelerate the decline of paper. So yes, I think it's of course also our future. Hence, it is our responsibility to take care that our customers see print as a valuable medium to convey their messages to the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a question from the audience at this point because there's a relevant question here from David Pilcher. Thank you, David, for your question. He asks, are there indications that destocking is nearing an end to assist with forecast new demand levels for graphics paper in the near term and later this year?
The €1 million question, which we are still asking ourselves every day as well. It's an absolutely relevant question, and it's a very good and important question. We are getting mixed messages, a little bit depending on geographical areas, a little bit depending on customer types. We don't think that the destocking is completely over. There are customers that are telling us that they are having stock levels that will force them to restart ordering on a normal level as from May, June. But there are also customers that are even saying, well, expect the normal ordering to come back again only in Q4. So there are a lot of mixed messages in that respect. We see it in that way that if we look at the official statistics, which are being gathered by Eurograph, the associations of paper producers, then we are seeing dramatic figures over the last 5 months. We cannot assume that this is the new normal. And that there will be a rebound in the second half of the year, and we can only hope that rebounds will come as quickly as possible, because based upon this destocking level, or based upon this high stock level, let's put it like that, you will appreciate that the operating rates of the industry in general are heavily impacted right now, and for that reason, I also say it's the €1 million question. When at least we will see part of that coming back.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ordering lots of paper, it's several million euros question.
It's several million question. Yeah, right, you are.
Thank you for your question. That was a good one. If anybody else has any other questions, please do put them in the Q&A. We'll take time at the end to do that. Ruud, I wanted to just follow up on something you spoke about earlier. We've seen quite a few producers, most recently Stora Enso, exiting magazine paper completely. Can you give some reassurance to our viewers that UPM is committed to magazine paper for the long term?
Yeah, absolutely, James. We are very clear, and this strategy is, of course, very clearly being presented during each and every possibility by our executives, by our board, by our chairman of the board, that UPM is committed to graphic paper. Of course, we have to recognize that paper demand has declined quite strongly. We have been adjusting our capacity quite a lot in the last 15 years. I mean, just as a side note, in 2011, UPM Communication Paper did the last acquisition in paper, buying Milakovsky. At that time, we were good for more than 13 million metric tons of graphic paper. Today, we are close to 6 million metric tons of graphic paper. So more or less, we have reduced our capacity with more than 50%. Nevertheless, within UPM, we are convinced that paper will continue to stay. Paper will never disappear completely. Of course, the big question is, when will the decline start flattening out, and at what level are we then? But I would also say, and with pride, I would say that UPM has been able to diversify its company, also thanks to the free cash flow our communication paper division is generating. So we still play a very important role in our company, and that we will stay in graphic paper is also being confirmed. That, as said earlier, we are doing investments in our paper mills. We have invested a CHP power plant at our Nordland mill. We are investing together with E.ON a power plant in our Hurt mill. Like I said before, we are now investing in 8 electric boilers in 8 of our paper mills. We are taking care of the maintenance, and purely with the fact that we continue being committed and believe in the future of graphic paper. So absolutely, in that respect, I have no doubt, and that can be recorded, that UPM will continue being in graphic paper. Will we continue to be with 6 million tons? That's a question, of course, how the demand will continue to decline and how we have to adjust ourselves. But that we will stay in graphic paper, absolutely.
Great. That's really good to hear. Thank you, Ruud, for giving that reassurance, I think, to everybody. I mean, I think we understand why a lot of your competitors have exited this space. But I wanted to ask you: is there anything that magazine and newspaper companies can do to help you to make communication paper, apart from just paying more for it and buying more of it? Is there any way that they can make your communication paper business more interesting? Is it using better thinking about better paper and better formats for their magazines and newspapers?
Well, I think it would be wrong for me to advise a magazine publisher or a newspaper publisher how to what kind of paper quality to be used for their magazines, or how the format should look like, or whatever. I think that they have experts enough that can do that. I think what is important for this industry, and that I would see as a very important element, is conveying the message of sustainability. What I mean with that is the fact that paper is still being seen by majority of the people out there that you are destroying trees. Paper industry is very bad for the forest. And while everybody will know with the print power and the two sides initiatives, that a lot of good messages are being built and are being conveyed. But for the paper industry, it's extremely difficult to convey this message to the consumer. And there, at least my goal would be, my ambition would be, that if also the publishers would see it the same way, how can we better convey this message to the audience? And there I would say magazine publishers, newspaper publishers could play a major role, so that together we can convey that paper is not unsustainable. Actually, paper is a very environmental friendly product. And if we could do that together, I think those initiatives, they would bring us a major step forward with regards to also continue believing in the future of print and paper.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And for everybody who's watching, I'm a Two Sides board member. If you want to go to twosides.info, that's TWOSIDS.info, you can get a load more information on the sustainability credentials of paper and the paper industry. And you can learn about how you can use the Love Paper logo on your products as well, which is quite an important bit of consumer messaging. So that's a really good piece of advice, I think, is using the resources that already exist, that's partly funded by UPM and other colleagues in the paper industry, to talk about the sustainability credentials of the industry. We spoke about sustainability. We've spoken about paper prices. The other thing that was a big factor in UPM's communications and PR in the past has always been innovation. And I remember going to your office, always remember going to your office in Helsinki and seeing the enormous variety of things that are made out of a tree, including a car made out of a tree. Yep. Is this something that you've been able to continue during the recent turbulent period? Any exciting innovations coming down the track that we should be looking at?
Oh, in total, I mean, meanwhile, I think that UPM has something like 400 designers and innovative people who are working on all this biochemicals, biomedicals, and what have you. A lot of patents are being filled, but if I concentrate myself on paper, we continuously listen to our customers. And well, perhaps it's an anecdote, but perhaps some people can still recall 1995 Drupa, when the gentleman from HP Indigo was talking about the future of digital printing and was promising the world, I don't know how many millions of tons. At that time, the entire industry went home and we all started to design digital papers, but we had to come to the conclusion that, well, he missed it with a couple of zeros, or he missed it with a couple of decades when it's going to happen. But still, we continued also building on those digital papers, and we do see that this market still will continue to grow. How big it will become, I don't know. For us, right now, it's still I would say a niche product if you compare it with the bigger publication paper grades. But we are extremely proud about the fact that we have managed to build up a relationship with HP, with the global HP organization. We have been doing some investments in our finish mills in Kaukas and in Kymi in order to develop digital papers for high-speed inkjet paper, so coated papers in that respect. We also have our uncoated papers, which are definitely bringing a benefit. So all in all, I would say that was very innovative. At a certain stage, as a traditional paper, we came to the conclusion that what we were missing in our portfolio is a colored newsprint grade. Well, we have managed to do so, and that has been produced until now by our Steyrmühl mill. But with Steyrmühl now exiting from our production process, very, very quickly, we have been able to start reproducing the colored newsprint in our Ettringen mill. So all in all, I would say that we continue listening to our customers and trying to be innovative in that respect with regards to graphic paper. At least my phrase always is, if UPM cannot produce what you're asking, nobody can produce it.
That's a great catchphrase to have. I'm just going to take we're nearly at the end of the session. I've got one more question to ask you, but I'm going to take some questions from the audience. First of all, I'm actually going to Teodros. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Teodros Melissa from Ethiopia. I'm going to pass your question to one of my colleagues after the session, actually, because I think this is better for them to answer than Ruud. But we do have a question here from our old friend, a regular guest on these things, which is anonymous attendee, who asks, with demand for packaging and container board also reducing considerably, do you think some of UPM's competitors' exit from graphic paper production has been too severe and too soon?
That's a good question. Of course, I would have to say most probably yes, but that again shows that if you're concentrating your graphic paper consumption on UPM, then you're working with the company that has the right strategy in that respect. And it's not for nothing that UPM is not converting any paper machines and is not having a specific division that is producing packaging paper. Of course, we have our spec area and Raflatak where we are active, but not like in the solid board or in the SBB board or in the packaging boards. Who am I to say that the strategy of somebody else has been the wrong one? I would like to focus on saying that looking at our track record, the strategy of UPM is the right one.
Of course, absolutely.
I leave it up to somebody else to judge the strategy of competitors of UPM.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're nearly at the end. Just a few reminders for everybody before I ask you my final question. The first is, if you go into the chat box for some reason wasn't working, if you go in the Q&A box, you can see a link there to the FIPP Congress where one of Ruud's colleagues, Thomas, will be there to answer your questions live. And also, Silke has posted a link to a survey that if you get a moment, please do fill it in. We're working at FIPP on a special report on the future of print, and particularly with a focus on independent magazines, aiming to look at the market. So if you would like to give your perspectives, your chance is to do that is through the survey that is posted in the Q&A box. Please do take a moment to fill that in. And thank you to Ulber, who has also reminded me of Print Power and printpower.eu, which is another resource for information on the effectiveness of print media. So we're nearly at a close. As I said, your colleague Thomas Valtasari has been given the job of coming to the Congress in Cascais in June to answer these questions live. So this is your chance to make life difficult for him, Ruud. What is the one question that you think our delegates should ask Thomas at that session?
What is the one question? Well, the one question which would make Thomas' life difficult is obviously the question with which we started more or less this seminar. James, what is the future of paper? How do we look at the future of paper? How will demand continue to develop? How will the prices continue to develop? But in order to make also our customers and a lot of your attendees now life difficult as well, I will also recommend Thomas. They are the only ones who actually can answer that questions, because we can produce as much paper as we want, but if it's not being printed into a magazine, if it's not being printed into a flyer, we can only add it to the waste paper. So I think in that respect, well, you already asked me quite a lot of difficult questions, and I hope I have managed to answer them in a reasonable way. I think that we are very much depending with regards to the future on what the majority of the FIPP members have to say about how they believe in the future of paper. And for that reason, I also say that I very much regret that unfortunately myself I cannot come to Cascais, because I have always been very much positive about visiting FIPP, and my first FIPP conference was in 2005 in Beijing. So I have been visiting quite a lot of conferences, and for us it has always been an extremely good insight of listening and seeing what is going on in the magazine world. So I'm pretty sure that Thomas will get some difficult questions, but I hope that actually Thomas, and in that respect UPM, will even get some more answers during the Cascais conference.
That's a great place to leave it. We all hope we need more answers in our industry at the moment. So that's a fantastic place to leave this session. Ruud, thank you very much for taking the time today. I appreciate your frankness. There are some questions there that were quite difficult, but you handled them very well, and really appreciate you being willing to talk about all these issues. If you want to learn more about FIPP and what we do, you can go to FIPP.com. And we hope, of course, to see you at the FIPP Congress in June, which is FIPPcongress.com for more information on that. For the time being, though, remember to check our YouTube channel, FIPP World. In a few days' time, we'll be able to look at a recording of this session. But it only remains for me to say thank you very much, Ruud, and thank you to everybody who was on the session today. We'll see you all very soon. Thank you and goodbye.